Welcome to Mission Ready Society. I'm your host, Orrin Price, and in today's video, we're talking about IFAKs. And more specifically, we're talking about the best budget IFAK in my opinion. Alright, so I've switched the angle here so you can kind of see everything laid out. And this is each component inside of this IFAK that I have put together. There's probably some items in here that you don't necessarily need to put in, but I just put in, just as some extras. But I'm gonna go through each item here on the table. I'm gonna explain what it is, kind of what the purpose of it is, and then I'll add probably the price of what each item cost. So first I'm gonna move everything to the side here. And first I'm gonna talk about the pouch itself. So this pouch is a Krydex pouch, and yes, it is a clone. This is a clone of I think London Bridge Tactical, but it's very well made still, and it's made out of Cordura, which, if you don't know, Cordura is essentially a nylon fabric that is pretty durable, and you can see the tag right here for Cordura. But yeah, this, I believe, this runs about $23, and you can buy it off of Amazon. And the London Bridge trading one is about 110. So there's a big price difference there. And again, even though it is a clone, it's still very well made. It has this little tab here on the inside. There's some Velcro down in there that it just Velcros too. So essentially you reach up in there and then you pull this, right, like that. And then there's these little rubber pieces that usually come off. These little rubber pieces essentially go on to the end of this cable here. I won't spend too much time trying to put this back on, but they go on there, and essentially they help keep that cable from like sliding out, when it's just sitting in there. And of course there's one stuck in here now. All right, there we go. I'll put that back together later. But yeah, it just opens up, and then it's a pouch. Now, the one thing that I will say about this IFAK pouch is that it doesn't have any like way to organize stuff in here or like hold items specifically. So, when you put everything in here, there's like nothing holding it in there. So like, the moment you open it, like it's most likely just gonna come out, which is kind of one of the downfalls that I don't really like about this. I kind of wish that there was, maybe some sort of system in here to keep items, held in place. But other than that, I think that this is a great pouch, and especially for the money, this is really good. And one thing that I will mention about this video is that this is the best budget IFAK, not the cheapest IFAK. So items are going to be, inexpensive, but they might not necessarily be like the cheapest thing that's on the market. And that's because, like, we want quality still, right? So when it comes to tactical gear, like, you want something that's going to be able to withstand like a lot. So you're not going to want to buy the cheapest thing in the market, because there's a good chance that it's just going to fall apart. And so, I try and find things that are relatively inexpensive, but still that are like going to last, and they're going to do their job properly. And in this video, you're gonna really see that, because when it comes to medical supplies, like themselves, that's one thing that I don't really like to cheap out on necessarily, because we're talking about items that could like save your life, right? So you want something that's gonna work. So like a tourniquet per se, right? I guess we'll move on to that. That'll be our next item. A tourniquet is used for, to stop bleeding, obviously, to stop severe bleeding on your limbs. And you know, it goes as high as possible usually to start on a limb when you're in like a tactical or non-permissive environment. And essentially, you know, it cuts off the blood circulation so that the bleeding stops. And this is one item that you really don't want to cheap out on, because the last thing you want to do is, you know, buy a $10 tourniquet, right? And you know, you find yourself in a situation where you need to use it and it breaks. Like that would be terrible, right? So I always buy you know, tourniquets that have been approved or that have been well tested and reputable brands. So I believe this one is a North American Rescue tourniquet, I think. I'm not too sure. Yeah, North American Rescue, and you can see it there on this tag on the inside. It's kind of small probably, but so yeah, North American Rescue is a really good brand, and you'll see some other products in here by them. But yeah, again, I'll open this up actually, because when we put this inside of our IFAK, you're gonna want it to be open, because like the last thing you wanna do obviously is like find yourself in a situation where you need this thing and you have to, you know, rip this plastic open. It's just gonna take 10 times longer, and you know, those seconds count. So open this. Let's toss that plastic to the side for now. This came off. But yeah, essentially this is our tourniquet here. Velcro to itself right now, but it's got for the time. This goes across, and then yeah, this is our tourniquet. If you want, you know, a little more info on this, I just posted a video on the Instagram page, I believe last week. Yeah, kind of demonstrating, you know, a little bit how to use a tourniquet. So this is like one of the most popular items in a tourniquet, and is like a necessity. Like if you don't have one of these in your tourniquet, you're doing it wrong. So a tourniquet is you know, very, very important. Now we'll move on. Oh, actually, back to the tourniquet real quick. I do want to say one thing is that I actually usually keep more than one of these on me. So I usually have about at least 2 on me, because again, they're just that important and a must have for your IFAK. Next, moving through this pile here, we have a emergency trauma bandage, or emergency bandage. This is a 4-inch bandage. I believe you can get these in 6-inch as well. This is from, I don't know what company is this from. This is from First Care by Safeguard Medical. Yeah, so essentially, trauma bandage. This kind of got some images here on the back. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll insert an image of like what one of these looks like. Essentially, because obviously this is inside packaging, you can't really see it. But a trauma bandage is essentially this big bandage, and it's got like a spot on it, usually like a white pad that goes over the wound, and then it has this little plastic, like kind of like this C clip almost. It's not like a C though, it's this kind of like weird shape, but essentially you wrap the bandage and you loop it through that, right, once, and then you pull it and to make it like really tight, and then you wrap it around itself very tight to, you know, again, stop that bleeding. And one thing to note is that this sometimes, not always, sometimes can be used when you know, there is no tourniquet. So for whatever reason, if you don't have one but you have one of these, sometimes this can kind of do, you know, the same thing, but it's always good to have a tourniquet, because that's going to be, you know, the best option when it comes to stopping mass bleeding. And again, you're going to want to make sure that this is or that everything here actually is sterile. So everything is, you know, needs to be in good packaging from a well-known brand. That way you know that it is sterile and that it's going to do its job. The tourniquet, you know, it's open and I'm touching it, so now it's not sterile. But like when it comes to items like this, like bandages and stuff like that, and some other items you'll see here, they need to be sterile. So the next item is this is just an emergency blanket, and I keep this inside the IFAK, just because, like, you know, hypothermia is another, you know, pretty severe medical emergency. So it's always nice to just have like a, you know, a small emergency blanket. That way, in case, you know, you suffer hypothermia for whatever reason, you can, you know, pop this out and, you know, gain some heat back, right? You know, there's not really much else to say about this. This is just a singular emergency blanket. This is one of those items that you don't necessarily need to get from like you could buy one off of Amazon. This is from Rescue Essentials, and actually all of this stuff that you see today was purchased from Rescue Essentials, which is a great website to buy, you know, medical supplies. And so yeah, so this is the emergency blanket. Use it in case of hypothermia. And yeah, you can see here it says reflects 90% of body heat, which is great. So now moving on to our next item here, I have a NPA, or a nasal pharyngeal. NPA is just short for nasal pharyngeal. And essentially this is an airway device. And this one is already pre-lubricated here, but this essentially will go up the nostril. And sorry, I'm blanking here. I forget which side it goes up exactly. I believe it is your right side, because you want there's a little notch here, and I believe you want that notch facing away from your septum. If I'm wrong, I will let you know. But yeah, so essentially this goes up your nostril. It goes all the way through the nasal cavity, and essentially this comes and it sticks down into the back of your throat. So I'll insert a diagram of what it looks like, probably. And you can kind of see there's some pictures here of this is how to use it, but you can also kind of see like how it goes exactly. So you can see it goes up the nostril, goes through the nasal cavity, and then comes down and kind of dangles into the back of the throat. And this is essentially used for if, you know, like an air passage is restricted for whatever reason. So like if your mouth is restricted and, you know, you're unable to breathe for some reason, you can use this to open up an airway to allow, you know, allow for probably not, you know, 100% proper breathing, but for better breathing. I've had 2 of these shoved up my nose before, not an emergency situation, but for learning purposes and demonstration. They're very uncomfortable. As you can imagine. I mean, there's a pretty large tube, but yeah, it's very uncomfortable. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's painful, but it's very uncomfortable. But again, it serves a very important purpose. So yeah, having one of these inside your IFAK is another great item to have. And then we have another product from North American Rescue here. And this is chest seals. So this is the North American's hyphen vent. So this essentially is like, so you know, if you suffer a chest wound where it essentially, you know, penetrates into the, you know, chest cavity. So let's say you take a round, right, and it goes to the chest, and it, you know, penetrates that chest cavity, and that you can no longer breathe properly, right? This is essentially like a square that is sticky on one side, and you want to apply this when the person is breathing out, because that's like when their lungs have like the most air capacity. So you don't want to apply this when they're breathing in, right? Because then they're going to breathe out, and also you kind of think about it, there's going to be, you know, air that's pushing against this, trying to escape that chest cavity. So you want to apply this when the person is breathing out, and then they breathe in, and you know, this essentially acts as, or it is a seal. That's why it's called chest seal, allowing them for, you know, better breathing compared to if that chest wound was still open and they had a sucking chest wound. This is vented chest seal, so it allows for, you know, fluids and stuff to escape compared to a non-vented chest seal. I've done some research, and vented tends to be better than 100% sealed, just again for allowing for you know, fluids to escape, and it like there's less, I can't think of the word, there's less tension, that kind of, right? It's slightly better than 100% sealed. So I get the vented chest seal, and this is a twin pack. So there's two. There's one here. There's one here. I always suggest getting something like this, a twin pack, because if you have a sucking chest wound where there's an entrance and an exit wound, right, you're going to need two. And yeah, this is from North American Rescue. This is their smaller ones. I believe they made slightly larger chest seals, but this is these ones here, great, I believe. And you can see it says compact here, and also it says entry and exit wound. But yeah, again, there's a diagram here in the back, kind of showing you how to use it. So you know, you have your chest wound, you peel the cover off to reveal the sticky part, and then you cover the wound and, you know, stick it down for a good seal. So that is chest seal, and we got just a few items left here. Also, go back to chest seal here real quick. This is another like necessity inside of your IFAK. And then next I have compressed gauze. This is Z-fold gauze. This is by Rescue Essentials, and this actually wouldn't be like my first choice when it comes to gauze. And the reason we have gauze is for wound packing. So we actually usually pair like this with this trauma bandage, because if we have a wound, right, we take our gauze and we pack that wound full of the gauze to, you know, help stop the bleeding, and then we usually cover the gauze with the trauma bandage and then wrap it, right? The reason I say that this wouldn't necessarily be my first choice is because this is this type of gauze, it's kind of hard to see, but this type of gauze, it works for wound packing, but it's not necessarily made for that. I'll insert an image of this gauze from North American Rescue that is really good for wound packing, and it's actually wound packing dedicated gauze. And it has like this little strip on it that I believe can be seen under x-ray, which is kind of cool. But yeah, this is Z-fold, allows for easier, you know, it makes it easier to pack the wound because you're not, you know, messing around with all of this extra gauze all over the place, right? So it keeps it nice and easy. You can just go back and forth. But yeah, I mean, this works for wound packing. It's just North American Rescue has wound packing dedicated gauze that I would say is better than this. But this is also a good option. So yeah, this is another necessity for your IFAK, and another very important item to have within it. So we're down to some of our last few items here. This is just an item that I have, that I've put in this IFAK, and it's not necessarily something that you need, but this is just some small packets of burn gel. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you get a burn, you put this gel on, and it helps relieve some of that pain. It also helps, helps kind of with the healing process. So I put this in this IFAK just as like kind of an extra item, because, in case of suffering some sort of burn injury, it's nice to have, burn specific medical items. Next item here is some medical gloves, and yes, I know these are not in a package, and I know that they are exposed right now, which is not necessarily ideal, but for this, it's all right. But yeah, it's always nice to have some medical gloves in there. That way, or inside your IFAK. That way, if somebody has to use one of these items on you, they can protect themselves from, any sort of bodily fluids that may get on their hands. So yeah, these are medical gloves, pretty self-explanatory. I feel like most people have seen these before. So now we'll move on to our next item. And this is another item that's pretty self-explanatory, and this is just medical tape for doing all sorts of things, making finger splints, whatever it may be, holding down some sort of medical gauze, or holding down some sort of other cover for a wound. But yeah, this is another item that I highly suggest having in your IFAK, and I would also kind of consider this a necessity as well. And then making our way to our last item here, these are from Rescue Essentials, and these are essentially medical scissors, but these are mini medical scissors, which for this IFAK, I got these mini ones, so they take up less space, because I kind of have, a decent amount of items in here. And then it's also, just nice to have these within your IFAK as well, because it makes, interventions easier. And, let's say you need to cut some sort of piece of clothing, and that person that is having to do that isn't somebody who's running like full-size medical scissors. It's nice to have these smaller ones or a pair of medical scissors within your IFAK. That way that person has access to medical scissors. That way they can cut clothing if they need to. And that concludes kind of everything that is inside the IFAK. So now I'm kind of gonna piece it together, and where did I stick that? Oh, it's right here. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, this IFAK doesn't necessarily have like an organizational device within the actual pouch. So I kind of just, take some of these items, not all of them, because, it's not necessarily like a perfect shape, we'll say, to put a rubber band around, but I just take some of these items, and then I take a rubber band, and I just stick that rubber band around them to kind of hold them together. You don't have to do this, but I do suggest doing it just so it kind of keeps things a little more organized, And then, yeah, you have this. These are all together now, and then you just have a few loose items, and you could probably stick a few more items in here if you wanted to, like these gloves. And then we can just kind of leave these items on by themselves. And I do suggest having the tourniquet by itself and not wrapped up in here, just because, again, that's one of those items that you want to have very accessible. And now I'm just going to put this back together real quick. All right, sorry about that. So now essentially we're going to take our items and we'll stuff them inside our IFAK here. We might have to readjust a little bit, like put this trauma bandage more towards the bottom. We're gonna slide everything inside here, just like so. And you can see everything's in there. I'll move this kind of one side, and then we take the tape and stick that down there. Take these medical scissors, put them like that, and then that just leaves us with our tourniquet. And this tourniquet, I'm gonna put it on the bottom here. Usually put it on the bottom. That way it is easily accessible. And then there's kind of a lot of, there's a good amount of stuff in here. So I'm just gonna take this cable now and I'm gonna loop it back through and close it back up. All right, well there you have it. This is the IFAK all put back together. And now you can take this and you can put it on your plate carrier, your battle belt, or wherever you'd like to run your IFAK. But yeah, this is in my opinion, this is the best budget IFAK setup. Thank you for watching today's video. Again, this is all my opinion on the best budget IFAK. So if you want to run a different pouch, by all means, go ahead. And then some items in here are definitely a necessity, like the tourniquet and other items. And then some of these items you could be okay without running, such as the burn gel and like an emergency blanket. But those are just some items that I like to have inside here. Yeah, so again, I highly suggest not purchasing the cheapest medical supplies that you can find, because again, these are some life-saving pieces of equipment. So don't cheap out on them. Buy actual good stuff. Yes, there's probably cheaper versions out there on the market, but don't buy it just because it's the cheapest. And yeah, again, this is the best budget IFAK build and not the cheapest budget IFAK build. So this is quality, not the cheapest obviously, but it's the best quality for, it's the best quality that is inexpensive. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for. But yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, I highly suggest checking out the Instagram page. I post extra content there, and I also give sneak peeks into, upcoming videos. So definitely check that out if you haven't done so already. And let me know down in the comments future videos that you want to see related to medical supplies, so I can go in depth more of like what each piece of equipment in here does and kind of how to use it. That can be a future video that I make, because I know I kind of just briefly went over what each item was. So yeah, so if you have any suggestions or anything that you would like to see in future videos, just let me know down in the comments. But other than that, I'll see you in the next one.